Hello, welcome to Code and Box Automation Lab. This is Sherful. This tutorial is about constructor in Java. So we'll see the definition of a constructor as well as what is the purpose of constructor or some use case. Okay, let's define the constructor. So in Java, constructor is a special method, same name as class name, which is used to initialize object or variable. So the constructor name, it's a method, a special method. The method name would be the same as the class name, and it's used to initialize an object or variable in that class. And the next is, after we create an object of a class, by default constructor gets called at first. So the constructor, there is always default constructor. So when we create an object of a class, constructor gets called. But if we create a constructor, to assign, to initialize any variable, that time, it's same thing will happen. When you create an object of that class, that constructor will get called first and will execute. Next point about constructor does not return any value. So since it's a special method, and this method does not return any value. This is not method create to return any value. So there will be no return type in this method, like integer, string, void. There will be no return type. It will be completely just constructor, the method name, and there will be no return type. And next point about constructor can also take parameters, which is used to initialize variables. So constructor can have a parameter, so single parameters or multiple parameters. So it really depends, but constructor can have the parameters. Okay, so let's get back to Eclipse. In Eclipse, I create a class. It's called my constructor, and there is a main method. Okay, first, since as I said, the constructor is a special method, and it's usually used to initialize a variable or object. So let's create a variable in my class level. I would say integer x. So I will initialize this variable x, okay, through the constructor. So after that, let's declare the constructor. Let's declare the constructor. So my note would be declare constructor and also pass parameter, right? Sorry. And set parameter. So let's declare constructor. So as I said, constructor, so it's a special method, so its access modifier is a public, and I'm saying the method name, as I said, the constructor method name would be the same name with the class name. My system is pretty super slow. Okay, let's copy it. Constructor name, and as I said, there will be no return type. Constructor, since it doesn't return any value, so there will be no return type for the constructor. So this is my constructor, same name as my class name, and let's pass a parameter. So I would say integer y, and this is a body of the constructor. Let's assign this y to x. So x equals to, I would say, y. Okay, so I'm assigning y to x. So because my example would be for this constructor will help to assign any specific value to x variable. Okay, so now I pass a parameter y, and then y assigned to x. which is this is the initialization, right? This is I just initialize. So x got initialized by y. The x got initialized by y. Okay, and then I have a main method. Let's inside the main method I create an object of the class. So same class name. So let's create an object. As I said, when you create an object of a class, it's automatically by default it's called the constructor. So it will call this constructor. So create an object of a class. How we can create? We'll say we'll use a new keyword and the class name, the same class name, and then bracket, and then we'll put this object in a variable. So variables example object obj, and then return type would be the same class name, right? So hover your mouse, you can see it's saying okay, add argument to match my constructor integer. It means, you know, when you create an object of a class, as soon as you create an object of a class, this object first call your constructor by default. So in your constructor, like this constructor, I have a parameter y and type is integer. So since it's calling the same constructor, so this object is expecting a integer variable, right? Integer value instead of y. Okay, so I have to pass a integer value, say 5. So this 5 will get assigned to y. So y will have now value of 5. It means, you know, instead of y now it's 5. So x will have the 5. So this way you can see the x got assigned with the value 5. Let's print the x. So to print any object or any member class, any members from a class, you know, we can use the object reference and then call that object. So this is our object reference object dot, we can call this x. So we can, and then we can put this one in a print statement, right? Put this in a print statement. Let's print sys out, right? Okay, let's print this. So sys out. Okay, so I'm printing x. So now x should print the 5. Okay, so this is the way you can see that x got initialized, okay, using the constructor. Okay, let's save it and then run it. Sorry, my machine is pretty slow some reason. Okay, run. Okay, still running. You can see 99%. You can see here. Okay, you can see here is a 5. So it's 5 is nothing. So we print the value of x, print the x variable, so which is the 5. So x got initialized by the 5. So that's the way you can use constructor to initialize any object or variable in a class. Okay, this is the simple concept of constructor to understand. Again, but it's very important topics, because in real life when you will do the framework for testing automation, we will use constructor very frequently to initialize, you know, the driver, the web driver, the driver. We will to initialize the driver, to give a live the driver, we'll use a lot. Okay, anyways, this is the concept of the constructor. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in next tutorial.